Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side. Today, the eve of the first presidential debate between President Trump and Vice Pretender Harris. Coming up tomorrow, what will they do? What is Kamala doing? By the way, where is she? Completely buried, completely sequestered away as she meets with Hollywood producers and directors to memorize zingers and one-liners and certain facts, because she cannot speak extemporaneously. She cannot speak without a teleprompter, without prepared notes. None of those things will be able to rescue her. She's tanking in the polls. Pennsylvania, Trump. Wisconsin, going towards Trump. Michigan, trending Trump. She's behind and they're panicked. The entire Harris campaign now rests on the ability of her to be able to speak extemporaneously. All of that and much more, and why she chose Tim Walz instead of Josh Shapiro. Ladies and gentlemen, The Right Side with Doug Billings is now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right side with Doug Billings, right side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and His divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, where has she been? Kamala, I mean, my goodness, it's one thing to not give any press conferences. What is it, 90 days or something now? Not a peep, not a word. They want this on purpose. This is their strategy. The radical left liberal hierarchy wants her hidden away and to practice the memorization of one-liners and zingers, certain facts for the debate tomorrow. The reason that she released her policy, if you can call it that, was because, she released it just today. They don't want anybody to have, least of all President Trump, to have any time to look at it and review it and to dissect it. So it's all becoming clear. They are in panic mode over there. They're crashing in the polls. The sugar high cannot sustain itself. It's crashing. They're crashing. The fake manufactured and engineered enthusiasm that was demanded by the hierarchy of that party, not effective any longer. Trump surging in the polls. And we look at the situation. I look at the situation. Pennsylvania, a state that is now clearly under Trump's lead. Trump has won and is winning Pennsylvania. And he will continue these battleground states. Nate Silver out with just incredible data lately. We spoke a little bit about it last week, but I want to talk about Pennsylvania in particular because that's, of course, the state where Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, and a Jew, by the way, is the governor. God love the Jews. We are all for the state of Israel over here. I want to, though, ask again the question, because really what they're after are electoral college votes, or at least they should be. And with Pennsylvania now going towards Trump, it makes me wonder, at least, why in the world, what was the strategy behind Tim Walz? It doesn't bring any new electoral college votes. Minnesota probably vote blue like they have in every other election in the modern era. So why would they concern themselves with getting Tim Walz from that state and not Josh Shapiro? I know this has been hashed out and discussed, but really I think now evidence of the obvious is clear. The state has just slipped away from Harris. Trump is now leading by 5 or so points in Pennsylvania. He's almost certain if he gets Pennsylvania, if Pennsylvania goes for him in the election, Trump's back in the White House, ladies and gentlemen. And so the real question remains why Kamala Harris did not choose Josh Shapiro. Now, first of all, it was never her choice. Okay, I grant you that. But when we ask the question, why didn't the hierarchy of this commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, choose Josh Shapiro? The race currently indicates that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is the state that may well determine the outcome of this election. And the data shows that if Trump wins Pennsylvania, the Electoral College tally will be 287 for Trump. That's 287 for President Trump and 251 for Kamala Harris. And that's a pattern that we're seeing across all of these battleground states. Trump is pulling out ahead and trending ahead in all of these states. In many cases, he's ahead by more than the margin of error. So we have to wonder, why wasn't Josh Shapiro chosen? Was it really the fact that he's a Jew? Really? You think that's it? We've got far too much anti-Semitism in this country, and we've got far too much of it on the radical left side of the aisle. It never ceases to amaze me how anyone of Jewish faith or Jewish tradition can vote for a commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat. I don't see how it just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense for me when I look at Christian people in my own church, Catholic people. How can they vote for Democrats? Clearly, you cannot be a Christian or a person of faith, a Jewish person of faith, a Christian person of faith. You cannot be one of those groups and be a Democrat. It's absolutely impossible. Their policies, platform, and politics fly in direct opposition to everything, almost everything, that you believe in. Now, the Republican Party is not perfect, but at least we aspire to be and to be followers of God, and we aspire to honor the intent of the founding fathers within the pages of our Constitution and Declaration of Independence and our Bill of Rights. The Commune Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, cannot claim that. They are clearly an anti-American political party. That is what they have evolved into. Again, evidence of the obvious is sufficient. Look at what they've done. Look at what they stand for. I can't help but wonder if it wasn't the anti-Jewish faction of this Commune Socialist Party, formerly known as Democrats, the squad, right? The ladies of the squad in our Congress. I just wonder if they had a hand in making the decision to not choose Josh Shapiro as the vice presidential candidate in this case. Because meanwhile, we've got Tim Walz, who is second only to Kamala Harris on the scale of radical liberalism. They're both, now they both comprise the most radical left-wing candidacy of anyone running for president in the history of America. And so this, for me, is really where the answer to the question can be found. I have told you, the reason that they chose Walz is where we can find the answer to this question. I've told you before my opinion about the choice of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz that was given to them by the hierarchy. Be clear about this, my friends. Kamala Harris herself did not have a hand in choosing Tim Walz. Zero, zip, nada. Not a chance. And by the way, President Trump in 2020 didn't have a hand in choosing Mike Pence either. So a lot of times the party hierarchy gets together and assigns the candidates for this role. Trump had a lot of other people on the list, General Mike Flynn among them, in his first go-around for vice president. Was not allowed because the hierarchy of the party wouldn't. But Trump knows the game now, and he's going to move with a lot of efficiency and beyond with what the hierarchy would demand of him. That's a different story for another day. Perhaps we'll do a show on that this week. But right now, Harris and her campaign. Why Tim Walz? Why was it him? Now that we're closer to the debate, it boils down to just a few key points. First of all, we have to remember, and I know that you all, because you're members of the most intellectually mature audience in all of podcast land, because you listen to this show. So I understand that you know. But in the off chance that other people new to the program are watching, or that you share it with other people, I want them to know what you know. Kamala Harris did not earn her current position as the Commune Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, candidate for president. She was bequeathed this position. She is in this position because the hierarchy of her party painted themselves into a DEI corner from which they cannot escape. They have the worst candidate by their own admission in their party now, and they can't say no, they can't get rid of her, they can't fire her because she's a woman of color. And that's the truth. That is the short and long of it right there. So they're in this corner. They can't get rid of her. So what they've tried to do is to manufacture a strategy going forward for the campaign that will at least further the debate. And that's the key. Let me explain. The strategy that they're now embracing. Remember, the most radical left liberal candidacy in the history of American politics is right there encapsulated with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And it is, I think, it is on a trajectory of absolute terror if they win. So my opinion about their real goals and aspirations for this selection of Tim Walz include this. All right, their number one goal. I've alluded to this a couple of months ago, and this may, to some of you, you may think that I'm a complete kook, but the number one goal for this election cycle for the radical liberal mob, the number one goal is not the presidency. Now, they'll take it if they can get it by any means necessary. Don't get me wrong. They'll be happy to take it. But their number one goal is not the presidency. That's number two. All right? Bear with me. Go with me on this. In the minds and the strategy of the Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, the number one goal here, this election cycle, is to move the political and social needle in America as far to the radical left as possible. That's number one. Mission critical number one. Move the needle as far to the radical left as we can, so that every conversation we have about politics and society begins with a further left starting point. I mean, look at the things, my friends, look at what we're talking about in just the 4 years since Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris were given the office. For crying out loud, we're talking about things like transgenderism of children. Who would have believed we'd be talking about this? Or allowing biological men to compete in women's sports. We're talking about the concept of doing away with entire police departments. We're talking about a radical transformation of America away from the divine providence of God and away from the intent of the founding fathers. We're talking about the murder of human babies within their mother's womb up to 9 months gestation. It is abhorrent. It is medieval. We're talking about the myth, the abject fiction of what they call gender misappropriation. And we're talking about, within that fictitious story, stripping parental rights away and allowing children and advocating that children would be allowed to, in the search for joy and happiness, be allowed to mutilate their genitalia. Those are words that are horrific. But as I've told you before, we've got to start saying these things out loud. This is what they're doing. And this is what I mean, moving the needle further to the left. Who would have imagined that we're talking about mutilation of children's genitalia as a way that they can find happiness and meaning in life? It is absolutely abhorrent. It is medieval. It is Kookville times 10. And yet that's what they want. That's the needle moving farther to the left. Their number one goal this election cycle. So the agenda of the modern day Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, is right there, moving it all to the radical left. And if given the chance, this radical left party would completely disassemble and do away with the most brilliant election determination system that has ever been devised in the history of humanity, the Electoral College. They would do away with it. They've already said so. Same is true. If given the chance, the radical left would completely disassemble, as we know it, the Supreme Court of the United States. So they are in full force transformation mode to fundamentally transform America away from everything that was inspired by the divine providence of God and what was intended by the founding fathers. To deny that is to be simply a victim of chronic intellectual immaturity. All right, I'm going to look into this further with you today, ladies and gentlemen, get more specific with you. I'm going to take a look at Tim Walz. We're going to look at what Kamala Harris really represents on this eve of the debate between Vice Pretender Harris and President Trump. DougBillings.us, though, ladies and gentlemen, I'm reminding you, please head over to my website, DougBillings.us, and prayerfully consider clicking on the donate tab to set up a recurring monthly donation. I'm in a sponsorship campaign mode, looking for new sponsors. I am fan-funded, crowd-funded. I'm a one-man operation over here, not monetized on social media, and I never charge you for the program. So DougBillings.us is where I would love for you to go. And again, prayerfully consider offering a monthly recurring donation so that I can continue to bring you this truth and this analysis about the state of play in America. And I'll be right back after this break. Stay with me. Cheers.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the set of my show, The Right Side. I am Doug Billings. Today's economy crashing thanks to the policies, platform, and politics of Kamala Harris. Thank you very much. If you want to protect your investment that you have set aside for your retirement, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's diversifying in gold and silver, the biblical standard for which we can protect our money. Head over to Doug's Gold, D-O-U-G-S gold.com, Doug'sGold.com, and simply get information about how you can diversify your portfolio and protect your retirement, ladies and gentlemen. Doug'sGold.com. Also information about how to use gold and silver as currency on Doug'sGold.com. Ladies and gentlemen, head over there today. Protect yourselves. Protect your retirement. Believe it. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Doug Billings, reminding you that conservatives are better looking than liberals.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. The Right Side with Doug Billings, coming to you from smack dab in the middle of the fruited plain of the United States of America, talking about the eve of the debate here and questioning the choice that the hierarchy of the radical left communist socialists, formerly known as Democrat Party, made when they selected Tim Walz, trying to make sense of this, especially in light of the fact that Pennsylvania has now slipped away from the Harris campaign, is in control of President Trump. Trump is, in fact, ascending in all of the battleground states. Ahead in many cases beyond the measure of error in those polls and in those numbers. And while we don't hang our hats on polls, not even close to doing that, it's interesting to see the trends here. And so I remain curious about this, because when we consider Pennsylvania and the strategy behind not choosing Josh Shapiro, a wildly popular governor in that state, and a state that is not locked up for Kamala Harris, nor was it locked up when this decision was made to choose Timothy Walz. Minnesota is not a state that brings any new electoral votes to President Trump. We're not counting on that state to switch to red. That would be great. Maybe it will, but we don't count on that as a part of our strategy. And why didn't they? Why did the radical left communist socialists? They are many things. They are anti-American. They're anti-God. They're anti-founding fathers, but they're not stupid. So why did they do this? Why did they choose Tim Walz? Because when we think of Kamala and we look at her record, I mean, the flip-flopping during this election season is obvious. I mean, the issue of fracking as it relates to Pennsylvania, it's interesting, because we would do well to remind ourselves that fracking is about a $500 million industry in Pennsylvania. And there's a reason that she's avoiding all of these press conferences talking about this and flip-flopping on the issue. She could have had Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania and won potentially an entire state's electoral college votes simply because of that choice. But she didn't. And so she's the worst political speaker in the modern era. She might be the worst political speaker in all of American history. She cannot function without notes or a teleprompter. You've seen the interviews, the clips where she's just speaking extemporaneously. Word salad is what everybody says, and it's absolutely, it's cringeworthy. It's hard and difficult to watch, and still nobody likes her. The manufactured, fake, generated enthusiasm that has been surrounding her since the day she was bequeathed this position is fading away, and it's crashing. And that's, you can be sure of it, exactly what it was. Manufactured, fake, and demanded enthusiasm that came down from the very heights of the radical left hierarchy. She's secluded right now and has been for 90 days, except for the occasional bus tour through Georgia or one or two campaign stops and rallies. She has been secluded with a Hollywood team of producers and directors who are helping script what she will do tomorrow night. And that means memorization, because she doesn't have notes. She won't be allowed to bring in notes. There will be no teleprompter. And so this is their hope. They're pinning everything on the ability for her to speak without notes, without help. So the memorization of one-liners, the memorizations of answers and potential zingers against President Trump, and all of that in play and going on right now. She will not have the use of any of the things that help her speak. She's going to be completely on her own. And the radical left hierarchy are completely and profoundly terrified of that. And they're completely terrified that the Harris-Walz campaign is losing in almost all of the battleground states, including Pennsylvania, and that the future of this campaign now, as it stands today and tomorrow, the future of that campaign rests squarely on the shoulders of Kamala Harris and her ability, or not, to speak and debate with no notes, without a teleprompter, and off the cuff, something that she has never been able to do effectively in her entire career. So in other words, the future of her campaign rests upon her ability to speak extemporaneously. She simply has no skills in those areas. It's going to be very interesting to watch. And we have simple things to remember here. She lies. Kamala Harris, that's part of the mantra and the playbook from everyone within that party. It's not exclusive to Kamala Harris. Lying about the things that she intends to do if she is elected. Flip-flopping. Because it's an election year, they've got to make it look better than what it has been. She is responsible for every ounce and bit of chaos and crisis that you have seen in this country for the last 3.5 years. And she's now basically saying, hey, I know I'm in office now, but if you elect me, I'll fix all of this. And we're not buying it. The vast majority of Americans in this country are not buying it. And this is the reason that in every demographic and in every state, people of, you've got white, black, Asian, Latino, Hispanic, men, women, all of them, young people, Generation Z in huge numbers, all of those groups in massive numbers coming over to President Trump. And you couple that with the fact that we have Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard endorsing President Trump, and with them 20 million votes. 20 million, ladies and gentlemen. And then we laugh when they talk about, well, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney just endorsed Vice Pretender Harris, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, wow, ooh. Well, guess what, radical left liberal hierarchy? That brings you a net zero of any gain of true conservative votes in America. Zero. None. have her. In fact, continue to put that forward. Continue to put forward the fact that Liz Cheney and her father have endorsed Vice Pretender Harris. Please do. And put forth any number of letters. I saw one today. 12 generals, 12 retired generals from the Army and various other branches have endorsed Kamala Harris. Well, that's the woke general crowd that President Trump is going to remedy once he's in office. Everyone knows that the military has gone woke. I'm not talking about the line level enlisted grunt members of the forces. And grunts, I'm with you. I stand with you. We all do. We're brothers and sisters, and thank you for your service. We understand the meaning of sacrifice and being away from family and so forth. We understand that we all want to serve this country as founded by the divine providence of God and the founding fathers. We understand that you're in a woke culture that will not allow you to address the true enemies of America and yet order you practically to denounce the uniform, the flag, and the country that you represent. That's what the woke leadership in America wants the Army, the military in general, to become. Trump stands against all of that. So we get a letter of 12 generals. All right, fine. They're retired. They're woke. Big hoorah. Again, a net gain of 0 conservative votes will go to the radical left side because of that letter. Just as 0 conservative votes will go to the left side because of Liz Cheney's endorsement or Mitt Romney's or because of the fact George W. Bush is sitting out not endorsing any candidate. It doesn't matter. The wave of conservatism that is sweeping the country is something that we've never seen before. And I'm telling you, this is not hopium. These are facts. This is the way that the state of play in America is going right now. A huge conservative swing. And why wouldn't it be the case? Because after all, everything that we've seen the last 3.5 years has been designed on purpose to cascade down upon us chaos and crisis. Look at everything they've done. The border is obvious and easy. You can see that a mile away. You know why they're doing that. They want those people to be the new electoral base, and they want to dilute the identity of America. What about energy independence? Gone. What about foreign relations, the debacle in Afghanistan? Now that the Taliban, because of the property and the weaponry we left over there, are better armed than any one of our allies in that region outside of the state of Israel. It's purposeful chaos done by design because they want to fundamentally transform America. It is rooted in all of that. Even Bernie Sanders came out the other day and said that Kamala is not serious about changing her Marxist policy positions for the election. She's just saying that because it's an election season. She's wanting to give the appearance that she's more middle of the road. No one with any shred of intellectual maturity believes that she's going to abandon her communist, socialist, Marxist, and fascist ideals. Nobody believes that. She's trying to be pragmatic, and she's trying to play the game of political hardball, changing everything up simply because it's an election year. In other words, my friends, what Bernie Sanders has done is to identify Kamala and it is as we know her. Bernie Sanders has basically identified her as a complete and utter phony. And we know that. We know it already. It's just interesting to hear Bernie say that about her. Remember, my friends, the radical left will tell you that Kamala Harris is trying to bring joy and happiness. She's trying to bring us all together. That's why she's putting forth these policies and these positions, by changing them at this point in time. As Rush Limbaugh used to say, Barbara Streisand, BS. BS, ladies and gentlemen. Everything that she's claiming to do in order to build consensus will be abandoned on November 6th if she wins on November 5th. They will not stop illegal immigration. They will not continue to build a wall. They will not change their foreign policy and the debacle that we have with regards to Ukraine and Russia. They will not reinstitute and go after American energy independence. Now, I am not one who says, if we don't win this time, our country is lost. I don't believe that America is on her deathbed, and I don't want you to believe that either. I believe America's in a nightmare, no doubt about it, 100%. But the good news is everybody, and words are important, everybody wakes up from nightmares. We are in one heck of a nightmare, and it will certainly be prolonged if Kamala Harris is elected. But America and the American Republic will not go away if Trump doesn't win. But I'm not putting that out there. I'm putting out there that he will win. He will indeed. All right, up against another break already. Lots more to talk about as we look into why these choices were made, why this radical left communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, has put these two people, Tim and Kamala, together and what it means. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be right back after this break. Cheers. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the set of my show, The Right Side. Hey, want to tell you about beef. Doug's Beef. DougsBeef.com. This is not your ordinary beef. This is prepper beef. If you want to have a supply of protein on hand, I'm talking ribeye, strip steaks, Kansas City and New York strip, and T-bones as well. Doug's Beef, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. Comes to you in freeze-dried packets, shelf life of 25 years. And when you cook this stuff up, I'm telling you, I wouldn't sell it if it wasn't delicious. Awesome stuff. DougsBeef.com. Head over there, take a look at all of the inventory, and stock your shelves with protein, with good tasting stuff. DougsBeef.com, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out. There's the beef. Believe it, for the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
The Right Side with Doug Billings, pointing out the intellectual immaturity of liberals.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The Right Side with Doug Billings. We meet over here in determined prayer and determined patriotism. Our determined patriotism, our determined prayer is exactly how we will reclaim the Republic away from this radical left communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. And we are looking at what they're doing, this fundamental transformation that they're so interested in, and juxtaposing that against the choice they've made for Tim Walz and Kamala Harris to go forward here. Remember, just to recap where we've been so far this hour in the program, their number one goal, the radical left number one goal, as crazy as it may sound, their number one goal is not the presidency of the United States. They'll take it. Obviously they're going to take it if they can get it, or if they can. You know what? If they'll take it by any means necessary, right? We all know that. We've been down that road before. But it's not their number one goal, believe it or not. Their number one goal is to choose and install the candidates in political office that will move the social and political needle in America as far to the left as possible. That's what they want to do, to change the entire discourse and discussion and policies and the politics in America so that they're more radically liberal. And we look at what we've talked about during these last 3.5 years, the topics that they have put forth: transgenderism, the LGBTQ kook community, the absolute fiction of gender misappropriation, defunding police, border crisis, energy crisis, everything they've done is not only built and designed to fundamentally transform America away from the divine providence of God and the intent of the founding fathers, it's to create that chaos that expedites those processes. And so it's a core strategy. I mean, you look at any one of those policies. Illegal immigration is always the easiest because it offers us the most dramatic and immediate example of crisis and chaos. It's a fundamental strategy of their desire to transform America. When they try to fundamentally transform America. Remember the old mantra that it was begun back in the days of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. That old mantra, remember it? Build back better. That's what they would say. That was part of their ad campaign and so forth. Their public mantra was exactly that. Build back better, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it sounds so nice and pleasant. We're going to build it back better than it was. Well, when you examine what they really mean behind those words, no thanks, because it implies exactly what we don't need. America does not need to be fundamentally transformed. America does not need to be built back better. She's fine just the way she is. Thank you very much. But the word that they leave out in private, they talk about, or in public, rather, they talk about in private. So they leave out the first key word. I was the first person to say this 4 years ago when Administrator Biden was gifted the White House. The first word that they have in that mantra is destroy. Destroy, build back better. And better, quote unquote, means in our radical left communist socialist image. That's what they mean. Destroy America, i.e., but we can't say that in public, so let's come up with something more gentle. Let's come up with something that sounds nice. Oh, what about fundamentally transforming America? Let's just say that. Okay, I don't think it'll dawn on them that quickly. Let's hope Doug Billings doesn't get wind of this because he'll be the first to point it out. So fundamentally transforming America means that America has to be destroyed, ladies and gentlemen. There's no other conclusion to draw from that. There is no sugarcoating that. You can't escape that truth. And the reason that they want to destroy America and to build it back better is because they really do envision some sort of a conglomeration and a mix of communism and socialism, Marxism and fascism. I shorten it all up, and I've just said the Communist Socialist Party. But you can add in whatever ism you want. This radical left communist socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, really is that nefarious. And they're not hiding it any longer. The reason that this illegal immigration problem, again, just by way of an example, is so important to the radical left liberal mob is because that it allows multiple tens of millions of people to come into our country and to become the new electoral base of that radical left liberal party. It allows illegal immigrants to come in, and the faster they come in, the faster that the American identity can be diluted and erased ultimately. And that is exactly what they want. That is what fundamentally transforming America means, to do away with the American spirit, the American identity. Look at various countries in Europe. They are experiencing this too, and that's where the radical left in this country got the idea. Germany, France, the UK, Spain to a degree. Illegal immigration is a huge problem, and in many respects, each of those countries have lost huge portions of their national identity. And the radical left liberal mob wants that here. They want it to happen here. The faster that they can dilute, the faster that they can eventually erase the American identity means the faster they can fundamentally transform us into their image of this communist socialist blend that they want to cascade down upon us. And as we've seen, again, I put it to you, my friends, we've seen this over the last 4 years. This radical left liberal elixir, the magic sauce, the secret sauce is, I think, ultimately this purposeful chaos and crisis that they always instigate and that they always want to happen. If it doesn't happen organically, they will create it somehow, some way. George Floyd, for example, back in 2021 in Minneapolis, where Tim Walz is from, George Floyd just happened to be the fuse that lit the fuse box and blew it up. And they used that. They used it. And they let it go. And when I say they, I mean Tim Walz. He let the rioters, he let and allowed the looters, the rapists, the murderers, the arsonists, the anarchists. He allowed them to have full reign over Minneapolis for 3 days before he did anything to try to stop it. Why? Because they want the chaos. Why is that, Doug? Well, that's ridiculous. You can't really believe that. I do believe it. They want that because they feel that the more the chaos, the more crisis, the faster people will run to the big government for help. And if they run and become dependent upon big government, they've got you. They've got you right where they want you. That's in direct opposition to what a republic is and what the intent of the founders was. And they know it, and it's purposeful, and that's the reason. If you're made to be dependent, why do you think they give so much free stuff, the entitlements? And it's not just in recent years. FDR, Roosevelt, was the first. All of the Social Security and all of the entitlements. We take care of each other by each other. We don't need big government, thank you very much, to swoop in and make us slaves to their entitlements. No other conclusions can be drawn, my friends. None. Once you begin to juxtapose their policies against what's happening in this country, it becomes clear. Purposeful chaos and crisis. It's their goal. And it's their playbook, number 1, chapter 1. That's it. We must create crisis. I mean, it's in every radical liberal book, from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals through everything. Look at what Barack Obama did. Look what Hillary Clinton has represented. Look what the entire Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, has done over these last 8 years, especially. They've slowly and incrementally done it for decades, but only recently have they come out in full force. How are chaos and crisis reduced? I put it to you, my friends. How do we reduce them, chaos and crisis, if we eliminate and defund the police? We can't. Oh, so maybe he's right. Maybe Billings is right. They're defunding the police because that's an avenue and way by which more chaos and crisis can develop. Oh, well, that makes sense. How are chaos and crisis reduced if we refuse to prosecute criminals to the full extent of the law? Oh, you mean that kind of stuff? Yes, because that's exactly what Kamala Harris did not do when she was district attorney. She did not prosecute violent criminals to the full extent of the law. She did not prosecute criminals with full force prejudice, meaning intent to prosecute to the full extent of the law. She didn't do it. And in the off chance she did, she gave light sentences and oftentimes granted early releases, which is a trademark of all radical liberal district attorneys and state attorney generals in every blue state in this country. Light sentences and early release, if they're even sentenced at all. You know it. You see it in the news almost every day. How are chaos and crisis reduced if we don't sentence criminals to the full extent of the law? How are chaos and crisis reduced or eliminated if we grant early releases to criminals? It isn't. In fact, the opposite has happened. They want violent criminals back on the street. What other conclusion can we draw? I mean, they will do everything they can to troll this message and to eliminate, to somehow block it or dissuade it or somehow disqualify me for saying this. But I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, even those of you on the radical left who I know watch the program, what other conclusions can we draw? Why they could have closed the border like that with a snap of a finger and the signing of an executive order. They didn't do it. In fact, on the first day of office, Biden erased all of the measures that Trump put in place. Every single one of them gone on purpose. Why? Because they want the chaos and they want the crisis. How are chaos and crisis reduced or eliminated if we allow looting and riots and arson and anarchy to flow through the streets like Tim Walz did in Minneapolis and other parts of Minnesota? And how can we do that when Kamala Harris sets up funding mechanisms to put those very anarchists back on the street for bailout money? That's what she did. They bailed them out, put them back on the street because they want the violence. They want the chaos and crisis because they think that it drives people towards the slavery of being dependent upon big government. I've got some closing thoughts and a few more examples of this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm up against a break. Please do stay with me. Share the program, too. Talk about this. Listen to the message here. And I'll be back with some closing thoughts right after this. Stay with me. Cheers. I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse Electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen, it can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle, that will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Doug Billings, driving the left crazy with the truth.
Everybody, welcome back. Right Side with Doug Billings. I want to give another dose of hope. You know, we see all this chaos and crisis around us. I know a lot of people out there. We are on our side. We are petrified. We are scared. We are nervous about the future of America. We see the destruction around us, and some of us have been inclined to think that if we don't correct this time, this election, America will be lost forever. So I am not in that camp. I'm in the camp that agrees wholeheartedly that we are in a nightmare. We are in a purposeful nightmare that has been cascaded down upon us on purpose by members of this radical left commune socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. A nightmare from which multiple millions of people are waking up every day. John and Jane Doe on the streets of America who may have voted for Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris are waking up to the nonsense and to the crisis and the chaos that they represent. And so that's why I have great hope that this election cycle will see a huge swing in our favor. We don't become complacent in that. We don't stop working for what we want to accomplish. And when Trump wins, you see, I'm putting that out there. When Trump wins, we still continue to remain involved in our local levels of government. That's where this battle is won. In your county, my friends, wherever you live in that county, you need to get involved with your Republican committee men and women. Jackson County, Missouri, Johnson County, Kansas, Johnson County, Missouri, Cass County, Montana, wherever you may live, Broward County, Florida, whatever county you're in, seek out your Republican committee men and women and the groups that they comprise. Get information about candidates. Begin to vet your candidates for elected office. Look, they have got to earn the right to have an R after their name. That's how we get rid of the rhino problem. It will not all be solved in 2024. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. The thing is, we're smarter than liberals. We're also better looking, but that's another story. We will prevail if we get involved in our local level. We will prevail when we secure our county and our state to the right side, to the conservative movement. Now, in some states, that'll be done and maintained fairly easily. In other states, it's going to take more determined patriotism, as I call it. And in some states, it may not happen for any time in the next decade or so. So again, patience. Some states will go our way and some won't. That is actually how the founders intended it to be. We've got to work at the state level. Don't worry so much about Washington, D.C. Change, is the kind of change that we're talking about, really never begins in Washington, D.C. It all begins where you live. So have faith in that and believe in that and have hope in that, because you can affect real change in your state, your county. County boards of commissioners are critical. School boards are critical. Your sheriff, find constitutional sheriffs in your county. Make sure that you get them elected and pay attention to the judges who are on your ballot. Do your research about them. I will raise my hand if we're asked to form a line. Who really never paid attention to judges during election day prior to 2020? Me. I didn't. I would just either go and vote straight no or straight no, yes on the judges. I didn't know. I didn't research it. And I think that's where millions of people are. It just seems like it's so much work. Well, that's determined patriotism. That's what I mean. We have to be determined in our patriotism, and it is hard work. Nobody wants to go sit in a school board meeting for 3.5 hours, but we have to if we want to reclaim our children from this woke, radical, left kook mob. And we will do it. We will prevail. All of these things that the Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, wants to do are all done on purpose. And just look at their policies, their platform, and their politics. Joy and happiness, baloney. They don't want joy and happiness. Look at what their policies have done. Are you telling me that the people in Minnesota experienced joy and happiness when Governor Tim Walz allowed Minneapolis to be burned for 3 days by arsonists, looters, rioters, rapists, murderers, and anarchists? There is no joy and happiness in communities where the police force has been defunded. There is no joy and happiness when we create a woke military who can't defend us. There is no joy and happiness in a country whereby the radical left liberal mob does everything in their power not to prosecute criminals with extreme prejudice, but to give light sentences if they're sentenced at all, and early releases to get back on the streets. And there is no joy and happiness in an open border where untold thousands, if not millions of people who want to implement violence on our country are already here making plans to do just that. And we've only seen the tip of the iceberg in Aurora, Colorado, and in other places. Haitians coming in, criminals from Venezuela, eating your family pets, snatching them out of your backyard, taking over entire apartment complexes, terrorizing neighborhoods. And the radical left, in my community, the County Board of Commissioners is daring to put forth a proposal whereby an entire apartment complex in a suburban neighborhood will be turned over to these illegal immigrants, Venezuelan criminals, and God knows who else are coming in and wanting to plan catastrophic harm to our country. It makes no sense, and the only conclusion we can draw is they want the violence on the streets of America. I put it to you. What other conclusion is there? Humanity, taking care of our neighbor, welcoming in the poor and the weak and the huddled masses? Yeah, we're called to do that, but we're called to do it legally. And they must follow the law. Their very presence is a smack in the face of anyone who is a law-abiding citizen. And so it begs the question, well, to what degree are we going to try to deport these people then, Doug? Is there any room for an illegal immigrant family who have broken no laws but are trying to work hard, and they've got a family, small kids, they're just trying to make a better go of it? Is there any room for them? No. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not. They've done this illegally. Go back home, wherever you came from, and get in line and do it legally. There is no compromise here. Our nation, our republic, is at risk. The very identity of America that they're trying to dilute and erase by virtue of these illegals being here is a real possibility if we start to become lenient with regards to who can remain here. It's crazy to think that that might be an option. No. And ultimately, that is the pathway where human dignity is more quickly restored in America and in our immigration policy, by following the law. There is no human dignity in allowing open border access and just everyone to come in here unfettered and unvetted. We can tell you unnumbered, a number of stories about children, trafficking, etc., that has resulted in the policies of an open border. Absolutely crazy to think that we need to accommodate or become lenient in our approach. It's not cold-hearted. It's exactly the opposite. It's a sign that we will take care of this republic, and within our borders, we will have peace and law, and we will have order in here. It's not going to be ridden with chaos and crisis as such that we've experienced over the last few years because of Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris. Their days are over. Multiple millions of American people are now awake to this, and that's your hope. And get out there into your local communities, into your counties. And again, I remind you and I beg you, seek out Republican committeemen and women and the organizations that are run by Republicans in your county and join up with them. Meet with them, listen and learn from them. That's the key to victory. That's the hope that we're looking for. That's how we save the republic. So be resilient in that and believe it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Thanks a lot to the good people at worldview.com. I appreciate them producing the program. Reagan, thank you very much for producing the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, please head over to dougbillings.us. dougbillings.us, my website. I'm a one-man operation, and I'm in the middle of a sponsorship drive. I'm a fan-funded, viewer-funded program. I need your help so that I can continue to bring you the show for free. I will never charge you for this program. So please, dougbillings.us, prayerfully consider offering what you can on a monthly recurring basis over there. There's a donate button. You click on it. It's very intuitive. It's very simple. Pray about that, and please consider becoming a sponsor and a donating factor to a member of the donating membership that we have over there. dougbillings.us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in this together. Do not give up. Do not fear. America is not on her deathbed. We're going to be just fine. I'll be with you tomorrow as we discuss the debate, and look forward to seeing what happens when Kamala has to speak extemporaneously without a script, without a teleprompter. It's going to be interesting. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it, for the Republic. Cheers.